Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We get started. Senator Carrozza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I bring my
Please.
brief panel up?
Please.
Good afternoon. For the record, Senator Mary Beth Carrozza representing Maryland's coast. That's Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. And I appreciate the opportunity to present Senate Bill 719. This bill is a local enabling legislation that would allow the Board of Commissioners for Somerset County to impose an annual property tax to pay for all or part of the cost of emergency services in Somerset County, including fire, rescue, and emergency medical services. This annual fee would only be implemented following a public hearing with advance notice of the hearing. Mr. Chair and the members, as you all know, several counties in Maryland already fund emergency services directly through the property tax, including Carroll, Cecil, Charles, Garrett, Howard, Kent, and Montgomery counties. In Somerset County, there are 8 organized volunteer fire companies, and they include Ewell, Marion, Princess Anne, Tylerton, Fairmount, Crisfield, Deal Island, and Mount Vernon. We wanted to share with you that earlier this year, the Princess Anne Volunteer Fire Company announced that it will not offer ambulance services to the community beginning July 1st of 2025. The Somerset County Commissioners did secure an extension of the services provided by the Princess Anne Volunteer Fire Company until the end of the year, December 31st, 2025, and they are currently working very hard on implementing a new emergency medical services plan for all of Somerset County residents. Last year, this Maryland General Assembly passed legislation that I sponsored, SB 807, to allow the Somerset County Commissioners to establish an Emergency Services Advisory Council to provide the county commissioners with recommendations regarding the operations of fire suppression, emergency medical, and hazardous materials services in the entire county. This bill, SB 719, would help ensure long-term stable funding for a reliable EMS system that meets the needs of the entire community and all our visitors coming to Somerset County for the many attractions and events held in Somerset County, including the annual J. Millard Tall's Crab and Clam Bake in Crisfield to be held this year on September 24, 2025, and we look forward to welcoming you all at that time. The bottom line is that this legislation is supported by the Somerset County Commissioners, Somerset County Emergency Services. I thank you for your kind attention and consideration, and I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 719. And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, if we could hear from County Commissioner and our Emergency Operations Director.
We can, but and also to move things along, I'm just curious, what, so in other words, the volunteer companies were just at their own expense providing for all these services for years, never been provided for through the county government? That's correct. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is accurate. I think if I might be off by a little bit, but I think the last 75 years.
Wow.
Princess Anne Volunteer Fire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to, we have a blended service in Howard County, so I'm used to working with the volunteers, but there's always been a commitment that we've been
right.
put forth.
We have
as interesting as you've gotten by all those years.
Yeah, it's been tough.
Yeah. Are there any questions for the senator? I'm happy to hear what you need to say. I mean, obviously, I think you need this to keep yourself safe. So there's not a big question there. But any questions? Did you have anything in particular you wanted to add?
Yes, could they just introduce themselves?
Absolutely.
They made the effort to come up.
Absolutely.
So it was that important, Mr. Chair.
It's obvious to me. So it's just obvious on the surface. So
My name is Darrell Webster, and I'm a Somerset County Commissioner for District 2. This is a huge take on for us, and I just can't express enough how much we would appreciate the approval for this bill. We can't do it without funding.
I understand.
I'm Yvette Cross, the Emergency Services Director for Somerset County, and I am in favor of this bill. It's desperately needed in Somerset County. Our response times are kind of high and delayed at times, so we need a fully funded county EMS, and this funding would help tremendously.
Understood. Yeah. Any other questions? We do appreciate you coming out. This, it's just, as I said, it's pretty obvious to me that you need this for your for the folks in your community. So
Thank you for the courtesy of taking them first as well, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
bet.
Thank you.
You bet. We're going to go to Senate Bill 666. Who was so lucky to draw that number? No. We could always count on Senator Zucker for a dad joke. So this is my bill. Shocking. I did not ask for this number. But I drew it lucky. And as you know, you have met Favor before, who was with my office, and she's going to provide the initial testimony, and then we have a couple witnesses.
Okay, sounds good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Favor Obasiolu. I serve as a legislative fellow in Senator Gazzoni's office. I am pleased to introduce Senate Bill 666. This bill ensures consistent and dedicated funding for community action agencies in Maryland, which serve as essential partners in helping families move from trying to make ends meet to success in whatever form that looks like for them. Community action agencies do more than provide assistance. They create pathways for families to achieve their aspirations, build businesses, and gain self-sufficiency. Through job training, small business development, and wraparound services, they help Marylanders turn their skills and dreams into lasting economic security. Senate Bill 666 establishes a progressive funding structure, starting with $500,000 in fiscal year 2027 and 2028, then growing to $7 million by fiscal year 2032. This strategic investment allows community action agencies to expand their impact, whether that means launching entrepreneurship programs, strengthening workforce training, or closing service gaps that keeps families from reaching their full potential. This bill is about investing in Maryland's future, ensuring that families working hard to build a better life have the resources that they may need. By funding community action agencies, we're funding the ambitions of families striving for economic independence, business ownership, and self-sufficiency. Thank you so much, and I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 666.
Okay, Favor, we were talking earlier. Now, this is a mandate. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a mandate.
So obviously, look, this is another one of those areas, and we're gonna have to talk through this, right? This is these organizations, as you know, in your own communities, provide for some of the all the poverty programs in the state, and so they have not had a consistent funding source from the state, and so that's why I felt it was necessary to bring it forward. We're going to talk about the details of this, but that's why you're seeing it at this time. Senator Hedelman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't even realize that this bill was on the docket today, and had a conversation yesterday in after our budget hearing with the secretary from DHCD, and he brought up delays in federal. There are all kinds of delays in federal CSBG, Community Service Block Grant funds, that are making you all very, very nervous, which is something I was talking to him about, kind of the effects from the federal government on different programs, and that was one he specifically put at the top of the list. So just sort of drives home the point how important our state support is to what you do is really, really important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoever would like to begin?
All right, I will begin. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and the entire committee, those of you who support us. My name is Tracy Broccolino, and I am the president of the Community Action Council of Howard County. Since 1965, the Community Action Council of Howard County, or CAC as we fondly call it, and our counterparts across the state have positively impacted countless families. We've helped families put food on the table, work a full day without worry because their children are receiving high-quality early childhood education, breathe a sigh of relief because they've avoided eviction or their lights have stayed on, and they're enjoying long-term impacts of energy efficiency in their weatherized homes. We are committed to helping people and changing lives in Howard County and across the state. Community action represents prevention on the human services continuum. While our network does help families in crisis, the lion's share of our work moves families out of poverty and keeps them out. The overwhelming majority of our clients are employed. They work at our hospitals, in our school systems, in our correctional facilities, at your supermarkets. They are your neighbors, and they are mine. Alongside distinguished boards of directors and myriads of community partners in our county, our county's administration and our private sector, CAC of Howard County has achieved results and positive impacts that would not be possible alone. We leverage partnerships to eliminate duplication and the need to create new programs that distill public funding. Time and again, we have demonstrated our ability to address evolving community needs as our assessments reveal, and we do so at scale. We are faithful partners, and we are actually the ones your offices call when your constituents need assistance. Your support for this permanent source of funding ensures that we will continue to serve that purpose despite tumultuous times. My thanks for your support for community action in the past and through the establishment of Senate Bill 666. Thank you.
Thank you again to the chair, vice chair, and committee members. I'd like to just thank you for this opportunity to express my strong support for Senate Bill 666. My name is Angela Martin. I am the CEO of Maryland Community Action Partnership, which represents the state's 17 community action agencies. You've heard from Tracy sharing what community action agencies do. Well, there are 17 across the state that provide services to ensure that families are not falling through the cracks. And they are supplied with the resources and also the tools and the pathways to self-sufficiency. So as shared, we really bridge the gap to families facing unexpected financial crisis, navigating job losses, and working towards self-sufficiency. And I'd like to just say, now more than ever, this bill is critical for our network. We know about the job losses. We've heard about the families that are now entering a state of vulnerability, and that's what we do. We exist to make sure that these families are not falling through the cracks. Each year we provide over 207,000 individuals with tools and pathways to gain self-sufficiency, to build businesses, and to work towards financial stability. And that need is growing. It continues to grow as terminations happen, as layoffs are happening right in real time. So these are families that are vulnerable at the time. And Senate Bill 666 would allow our agencies to help these hardworking families that will be forced to keep them from having to scale back and to cut programs. Senate Bill 666 would provide that sustainable funding to allow our agencies to continue the work that they do each and every day. So, as again, now more than ever, we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the panel? Thank you very much. Let me do one more. Senator Quarterman. 690, you. 698.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, sir.
You can begin.
Thank you, Chairman Gazoni, Vice Chair Rosapet, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, representing Washington and Frederick counties. Thank you for the opportunity today to present Senate Bill 698. This bill will provide a sales and use tax exemption for construction materials and warehousing equipment used in a target redevelopment area in Washington County. Senate Bill 698 will contribute to the revitalization and development of the Mount Etna Technology Park, which is poised to become a key asset not only to our region, but to the state of Maryland. The proposed exemption is a critical step in making the park more attractive to potential investors and incentivizing the development of the park, which will enhance the region's ability to attract high-tech industries, research centers, life sciences, and manufacturing options. We have seen this approach taken before, most notably and admittedly on a much larger scale, but a success nonetheless with the development of Trade Point Atlantic. Our community has been working in earnest to help develop this park for well over a decade, possibly longer. The Hagerstown Washington County Industrial Foundation, commonly known as CHIEF, invested first with land acquisition, which sits at over 150 acres of land. They have committed over $2 million of infrastructure and stormwater management. Washington County has invested over $18 million in road and bridge infrastructure projects connecting a major thoroughfare on the east side of Hagerstown to the park and connecting it with the Hagerstown Community College and Meredith Medical Center. Additionally, the county has invested another $3 million this year for additional connectivity. The total investment of over $27 million when including county, state, and federal funds. Again, this park is poised to be transformational when it comes to economic growth and development in our area. You will find letters of support from the Washington County Board of County Commissioners, the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Hagerstown Committee, and the Hagerstown Washington County Industrial Foundation, signed, and I should note, I hope the committee members will take note, by former member Andrew Serafini. Andy wanted to be here today. However, unfortunately, he wasn't able to come. Andy has been heavily involved not only as a board member of CHIEF, but also, as I like to say, Senator Emeritus for District 2 with this development. And I know he wanted to be here and wanted to extend his gratitude to you guys as well. So thank you for the consideration of the bill, and we respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 698.
Questions for the sponsor? Give a witness.
Nope, just Andy, but.
Question, yes. Senator Sean.
I know this is a local bill, but I have the same question for this and your next bill. Are there any clawbacks in the bill that require the entity staying in place a certain amount of time, hiring a certain number of employees, or anything that would compensate for the incentives?
So the bill at hand, there is not. It's just an exemption from the sales and use tax for the construction of whatever we made. The next bill, when we get to that, we can speak to, I have some folks from the county here who can speak more directly to that. But on this one, again, I think, to me, it's the park has set pretty much dormant for the last decade or two. I mean, we've been making a lot of infrastructure improvements, so I struggle to say that we've really lost anything. We're trying to incentivize it to then get that investment, which would then far outweigh any type of sales tax that would be generated, because right now we're not, quite frankly, getting anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say about this bill, and as you stated about Trade Point, I can let this committee know the benefits of this outweigh the outcome. Well, you're going to get a lot out of it, is bottom line. Because from what I've seen what Trade Point Atlantic has done with this type of incentive, they have now 14,000 employees there. So this is a great benefit that I can see that the state of Maryland, with a local bill, can benefit from as well. So I'm going to commend the good senator, and just want to tell the chairman it's a good bill. Thank you.
And that's so. Thank you.
That's so.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on to the next one then. 98.
If you don't mind, I have some folks here from the county here who would like to participate as well, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. Yep. Come on down, guys. You can come up too, John, if you like. Thank you again, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the committee. Again, for the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, representing Washington and Frederick counties. Thank you for the opportunity today to present to you Senate Bill 596, Washington County Property Tax Credit Economic Development Projects. This bill will alter an existing local property tax credit in Washington County for real property owned or leased by a new or expanding business that creates new jobs. Senate Bill 596 requires a new business entity located in the county or an existing business entity in the county to invest in capital improvements, as well as creating additional full-time positions. We are hopeful that these changes will help drive robust growth and development and economic opportunities within Washington County. As a local bill, this was voted out of Washington County delegation unanimously with bipartisan support. We have a delegation letter that should be uploaded already. Additionally, the legislation is supported by the Greater Hagerstown Committee. Their letter, unfortunately, didn't upload in time, but should be sent to everyone's emails. Lastly, the bill has unanimous support from the Washington County Board of County Commissioners, of which we have some folks here today from Washington County that made the trip down. And so I'd like an opportunity to let them add to this. And in advance, we appreciate your consideration and respectfully ask for a favorable report.
Okay. I guess I'll start. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Linda Spence. I serve as the Financial Programs Administrator for the Washington County Department of Business and Economic Development. We fully support Senate Bill 596, Washington County Property Tax Credit and Economic Development Projects. This bill represents a crucial update to the Job Creation and Real Property Tax Credit Program, or JCRP, a change 2 years in the making. It combines two other programs Washington County previously offered and has the best of all three worlds. By supporting this bill, we can continue to attract companies looking to relocate to Washington County while also fostering the growth and renovation of existing businesses. This will not only benefit our local economy, but also Washington County retain essential tax revenue to further drive economic development offers. We thank you for considering this important legislation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Jonathan Horowitz, and I'm the Director of Business and Economic Development for Washington County. I'm here today to provide full support for Senate Bill 596. This bill seeks to alter the language dictating a local marketing and attraction incentive known as the Job Creation and Real Property Tax Credit Program. This program is a tool utilized by economic development to provide county real property tax abatement to businesses looking to locate or expand inside Washington County. Our citizens exchange their tax dollars for the creation of new employment opportunities for our community. Through the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the shift in consumer habits toward online shopping, Washington County was inundated with commercial and industrial development. As our office administered these programs, we found the jobs being created did not always meet the expectations of our citizens and our leadership. These requested changes ensure this tax exchange provide the citizens of Washington County with employment opportunities that provide a living wage income. Our intention with these proposed changes are to protect the tax base while still providing economic development with the tools necessary to win statewide site selection competitions on the national stage. Specifically today, Senate Bill 596 seeks to alter the schedule of percentage of abatements provided through this program, the required square footages of improvements, as well as the number of new jobs required to qualify for this incentive. Also, the language changes today allow for the program to be utilized to rehabilitate existing properties as well as the construction of new properties, new structures. This is important to Washington County as we have become a more urban setting as development spills our way from the east. Just want to thank the senators and everybody in the Senate today for hearing this bill. I'd like to thank Senator Quarterman for his assistance in helping our delegation propose this legislation.
Thank you. And then Commissioner President John Barr, I don't know if you have anything to add or not, or he might just be here for support. So
I'm here for support. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and board committee members. On behalf of the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, we just want to thank you for your time here today, and we unequivocally full support this bill and this request 5-0 for the county commissioners.
Questions for this panel? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator McCray? 550.
Not McKay. Not McKay. What?
It's a common mistake.
No, it shouldn't be, though. It should not be.
Very common mistake.
I know.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Corey McCray representing the 45th Legislative District. I wanted to, I come here before you in reference to Senate Bill 550, Mr. Chair, and Senate Bill 550 really hit different than other bills that I may present because it specifically deals with back home. There's a block in my neighborhood, the 600 block of Castle Street. And I can remember graduating from high school and this block being filled with vacant homes. And Mr. Chair, there are moments where I think that it's important to take ownership. So I say that I've been in elected office. This is my 11th session, but I feel like I failed my neighbors and my neighborhood as a leader. And I say that because I never questioned who owned those vacant homes. I never asked the question, not just who owned them, but once I did find out, what was the timeline in reference to addressing those vacant homes where people still lived on those respective blocks. There's still 2-3 people to this day that live on that respective block. And in doing so, understanding my position, understanding how power works, I was able to shift the conversation, and that 600 block of Castle Street will head in the right direction in the foreseeable time. I do feel confident in that piece of it. But the reality is that that should not exist. The state of Maryland is investing $50+ million to address vacancy in the city of Baltimore. That's a lot of money, y'all. But we also have to think about the small contributors that contribute to that vacancy, Mr. Chairman. And I also think about not just vacancy, but I think about the generational wealth for those folks that still lived on that block, that still lived next to those vacants, did not move out of their respective neighborhoods at that time and chose to stay, but unfortunately was next to those vacants. So we put in Senate Bill 550, and I'll get to what it does. What Senate Bill 550 does is for nonprofits, for anchor institutions that own specific parcels within our neighborhood and they do not develop them over a certain period of time. We chose 3 years, which we saw as SSTAT always review from that standpoint in 3-year increments, that that the city council would be able to have enabling language to charge a special tax rate up to 10 times the number that they currently pay at this moment. You see, Mr. Chair, that organization was paying property taxes. They were paying property taxes. But the property taxes were $150, $200 a parcel, which is a very nominal fee and no incentive to develop those respective parcels over a 2-decade period of time from that standpoint. So I think that the organization did come in with some level of amendments, and we're going to entertain some of the amendments. Some of them that I think are worthy is just making sure that we're specifying that we're talking about vacants. We're not talking about things that are producing good opportunities for neighborhoods. We're talking about places that still have vacant lots, still have vacant buildings, and that is what the intent is. So like they came in with that just from that clarification. And just talking with my colleague over in the House that has it, my councilman that sits next to me and to my left, and those that are impacted to see if there's opportunity opportunity to maybe say, hey, 3 years, let's see what it looks like. Maybe it's a 5-year, but we'll have that conversation as a community from that standpoint. I'm going to introduce some of the folks that I'm sitting next to, Mr. Chair. So right next to me is the councilman of the 13th District. When I talked about the 600 block of Castle Street, not only does he represent this, but he lives around the corner from this respective neighborhood, grew up all his life in that respective neighborhood, can eat at Northeast Market and can see that same block that we're talking about. We have Callie here to talk about from an economic standpoint, how does this impact folks? I have my mayor's office with Nina just to make sure that we can say like the mayor is supportive of this initiative as a local jurisdiction. And we have SEIU 1199 who's working hard at this specific issue to address those. So Laura will be able to say that. But like I said, Mr. Chair, it's not too many things. I feel like I work very hard. And I feel like I go back home, I'm trying my best to make a difference. But this is one of the few times where I knew something was in my control and I did fall short.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Councilman Antonio Glover. I do represent District 13 in East Baltimore, born and raised. Went to school there, worked there, and still live there. So I come here to speak in support of Senate Bill 550. You guys have a written testimony for me already, but I want to speak from the heart. This is a community where I was born and raised in. As the senator mentioned early on, I could literally, walk out of, my home and go to the left 2 blocks up. Those vacancies are still there. There are, I think, 2 homeowners that are in that block. 2 homeowners that have been in that block since I've been in elementary school. Over 25 years has this block been vacant. And this block has been, the properties has been taken over and purchased by nonprofit organizations. This is not a target to the nonprofit organizations, but this is to hold them accountable. Far too long, we've seen the vacancies in our community. We all know what vacancies do to our community. But what we're just saying that, do your portion, put your share in, and let's get the ball rolling. When you have an individual or you have an entity that are paying $100, maybe $200 a year per partial, that's not holding their feet to the fire. What they're saying is that we're going to continue to hold on to these properties and maybe hope that the other residents that do live on this street, decide to either sell those properties or get frustrated and move out, which we do not want that to happen. All right. So what I'm saying is that to you guys, please hear my cry, not just my cry, but our community's cry, as we say, let's hold these nonprofit organizations accountable by taxing them, taking it up at least, 10 times the amount. And maybe those that have those 10, 15, 20 properties, they'll start to say to themselves, you know what, they're really kicking, my pockets. It's time for us to go ahead now and get these houses rehabbed or even sell them off to somebody that want to make sure we're bringing something better and beautiful to the community. So I ask that you please support Senate Bill 550 because supporting that is supporting the residents of Baltimore City. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Gazzoni, members of the committee. My name is Callie Shumitz with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. So we're here in support of Senate Bill 550 because we see this as building on what you all did last year and giving local jurisdictions more tools to address vacant and abandoned properties and their community concerns about that. As you've heard, Baltimore really faces some unique challenges in funding local services, given the number of universities, hospitals, museums, and large nonprofit service providers that own property in the city, but don't necessarily pay taxes on that property. According to the city comptroller, there's about 18,000 nonprofit-owned properties in the city, and if they were taxed, that would account for about 30% of the city's tax base. So we don't really see this bill as a radical shift in the current system. There are certainly benefits to allowing to giving these tax benefits to nonprofits. But this is a small tweak that would help city leaders address these specific issues that are facing their community. And it will really help ensure that the nonprofit exemption is appropriately used, and so that ensuring that when nonprofits are not paying taxes, that the activity that they're getting that tax benefit before is actually benefiting the community. So this would give the city another tool to ensure that the nonprofit exemption is being used appropriately. And finally, I think we just emphasize that this is enabling legislation, and it gives the city council and the mayor the chance to have those community level conversations, talk with stakeholders, and ensure that they're implementing this in a way that makes the most sense for them. So we'd ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Nina Themelis, Director of Government Relations for Mayor Scott, here to testify in support of Senate Bill 550 on behalf of the Baltimore City Administration. As mentioned, this legislation is enabling in nature, meaning that the City Council would still have to pass a law locally in order to establish a separate subclass and separate property tax rate for these nonprofit institutions. Over the past 4 years, the Scott administration has worked tirelessly to reduce the number of vacant properties throughout the city, constituting a nearly 20% reduction, the largest reduction seen over the past at least decade. We utilize the authority given to us by the General Assembly in passing our own local vacant tax property rate and establishing that subclass. And at the end of last year, we also established the first ever, to our knowledge, non-contiguous affordable housing TIF with about 8,000 properties within that TIF. Unfortunately, as mentioned by several panelists here today, the city has a significant percentage of our property that is non-taxable. So while we take significant effort to reduce the number of properties that sit vacant, there are still those that remain vacant over years and years of, like a period of years and years. We like to work with our nonprofit partners to develop our neighborhoods, but we need to see that those nonprofit institutions are as invested as we are and as the neighborhood residents are in making those improvements in those neighborhoods. So we're seeking to increase the number of homeowners, kind of continue the economic development within our communities, and so we can't see certain properties remain vacant for decades. We need to see that the institutions are equally as invested as we are in improving those neighborhoods. And so for that reason, we would request a favorable report on Senate Bill 550. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni and members of the committee. My name is Lorraine Arikat. I'm the Senior Policy Analyst with 1199 SEIU. We represent the largest healthcare workers union and over 10,000 members here in Maryland and DC. 1199 SEIU supports SB 550. We're also part of a large citywide coalition that's focused on addressing wealth disparities that are created by our tax-exempt hospitals or universities. Baltimore City owns about 20% of all tax-exempt property in Maryland. And because Baltimore City relies on half of its revenue from property taxes, this tax loss from our largest nonprofits means that the burden of financing public services falls solely on residents and local businesses. Baltimore City currently has a revenue gap in their general funds, and it's clear that the city needs revenue to pay for mandatory increases in funding for public schools, aging infrastructure, and other essential city services. And this must be done without imposing more costs on local residents who are already paying higher property taxes because of the large amount of tax-exempt institutions in the city. This legislation will help to generate revenue, minimize vacant property, and spur community development. And for those reasons, 1199 supports SB 550 and urges a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Questions for this panel?
I'm very sympathetic to it, but I do have a couple of questions. Senator, you talked about this one block that you're very familiar with. What's the scale of this problem across the city, would you say?
I'm not sure the scale of the problem, but I know that there are various problems. What I did after I found out about this block, I started to take some level of ownership. I reached out to Dan Phillips at STAT, and I got a list of every one of the properties that the respective anchor institution had owned that are currently paying property taxes, very nominal from that standpoint, so it's not isolated to this specific block.
But is it like hundreds of properties or tens of properties or thousands?
I don't want to say it's tens, and I don't want to say it's thousands.
Okay, somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between, yes.
Okay, fair enough. And when you say nonprofits and then you said anchor institutions, in my head, those are two different, I mean, they're related, but they're two different things. Who really owns these properties? I mean, seriously, I just don't know because I don't live in the city.
I would say that anchor institution is, and I think all of our anchor institutions are nonprofits. I'm trying to be respectful of the anchor institution, but Mr. Chair, if you want me to lean in and say the anchor institution, I think we kind of know who it is, but you give me your direction from that standpoint.
Okay, so that's it's not just nonprofits in general, it's anchor institution nonprofits.
It's anchor institutions and nonprofits. So, Mr. Vice Chair, my issue is that even if it was a nonprofit that had owned, they're doing the same thing from that standpoint. So these nonprofits, I appreciate the job creation. I appreciate the activity that may come from the job creation. But these are a subset of properties that they're currently paying property taxes on, specifically because they're not utilizing them for their non-exempt use. So these are ones that we've identified that SDET has them paying property taxes on, but it's so nominal because it's vacant. And I'm not saying that they're like, we got a ton of vacants. So you got vacants where the city has to come out, cut the grass, board it up. So they're taking care of their vacants. So these are nice vacants, but they're still vacants and prohibiting the economic activity in those respects.
No, that's why I'm really sympathetic to this. I guess I'm just trying to understand it, big picture. So why are they owning these properties? Why are they owning vacant properties?
You will have to ask them why do they hold on to properties for decades.
We may? Okay, all right. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But I do want to lean in as soon as it was identified. I've worked with the respective organization. I do feel as though they have a very strong plan in reference to that specific area. But this isn't about Corey McRae. This isn't about at this moment. It's about 20 years from now, making sure that something like this does not happen again.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else here to testify on this?
This is first time down here too, Mr. Chair.
Is that right?
Push that red button.
You can come every day.
Thank you.
Good job. Senator McKay. You're going to have to stay anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice Chair, committee. We certainly know how to clear a room calling me. So thank you very much for allowing me to present Senate Bill 639. This is a local bill. If you need a letter from the Garrett County delegation, I can provide that. Senate delegation, that is. This bill is for the purpose of authorizing the county commissioners of Garrett County to enter into certain contracts for the purchase of an indeterminate amount of goods and services as an as-needed basis for a period of time without advertising bids or authorizing a purchase of one or more vehicles without advertising for bids in the amount not to exceed $100,000.
Questions for Senator? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Senator Jack Bailey representing St. Mary's and Calvert County for the record. Today, Senate Bill 623 is a local bill that authorizes the commissioners of St. Mary's County to borrow up to $71 million to finance construction, improvement, and development of public facilities in St. Mary's County. It's important that you understand this bill has passed the entire St. Mary's delegation. I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 623, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much. Oh, there's a question.
So there was no opposition at all from the St. Mary's Senate delegation? None?
There is no opposition from the St. Mary's County Senate delegation.
It's a powerful delegation.
We also have, thank you very much for that question. We also have the delegation, including the, all three delegates that are in support of this.
Okay.